Welcome back to America's Forum. History notes that on June 23rd of 2008, President George W. Bush nominated Ann Dunwoody to be a four-star general in the U.S. Army, the first time a female had ever achieved that rank. After 37 years of service, she retired in 2012 and has now authored a new book entitled A Higher Standard, detailing her career and how she was able to break through that camo green ceiling in the military. Our contributor Rick Blackwell sat down with her yesterday before she spoke to the Forum Club in Palm Beach County, Florida. Let's listen into that interview.
Boy, what an amazing career when you think about it. Your first leadership command, 100 soldiers, your final assignment in the Army, 69,000 employees, $60 billion project, the global supply chain in Iraq and Afghanistan, and of course that shining moment in 2008 when George W. Bush, when he nominates you to be a four-star general, and of course you were the first female ever to have that rank. So as you look back, as you reflect on this amazing four-decade career in the Army, talk about some of your thoughts, some of your reflections about that career.
Well, Rick, one of the reasons I wrote the book is just to do just that, is trying to capture some of the lessons, the leadership lessons that I think worked for me and contributed to my success, and some of the stories and vignettes that helped define those leadership lessons. But it was a wonderful journey. First of all, I love being a soldier, I love leading soldiers, and I wouldn't change a thing. If I had to do it all over again, I would.
Well, you definitely went right through that glass ceiling, and Hillary Clinton talks about that glass ceiling. And it looks like she obviously now is going to be running for president. Carly Fiorini on the Republican side said that she's about 90% sure she's going to run for president. We don't want to talk politics, but why has it taken this nation so long to elect a female president? Is the time right to have that female commander-in-chief?
Well, one of the things I talk about my own journey is that it was a journey about leadership, more about leadership than about gender. And so that's why I chose to write about leadership. But people think that, how did you claw your way to the top in this man's world, and why you? And I think it is timing, and for me, it's also about diversifying the field. And to me, I'm very excited that there's women and minorities that are now at that level of our government that are competing for, President of the United States. And I think there's a lot of doors. I've watched doors open my whole career, from lieutenant to general officer. There are more doors to be open, and we'll see if she walks through this one.
Now, Hillary Clinton in 2008 did say that there were charges of sexism at some point. Did sexism play a role in your career? What challenges and obstacles did sexism play for you in the military?
I talk about that in my book. I didn't just skip along the yellow brick road and voila, end up at the end of the rainbow as a four-star general. I had obstacles. There are obstacles on the road. There are challenges. But there's also a lot of people that helped me along the way. And I truly believe that that's the case in every profession, in every career. It doesn't matter what you do yourself. Obstacles, challenges, and people that are willing to help you. And so I try to talk about some of the challenges I had coming through the ranks, and talk a lot about the people that helped me as I came through the ranks.
One thing that you've been really working hard on is the military and the fight against sexual harassment and assault. And I think at one point you even said the Army should be the shining example for the entire nation. What are you doing to try to tackle this problem? Is it a huge problem? Is the Army the example that we all want to look to right now?
I think one's too many. One sexual assault is too many, one case. And so we need everyone at every level to be able to work, identify, and stamp this out. Now, that briefs well, it's also hard work. And it's not an excuse that we've been an Army at war for the last almost 15 years, 14 years. And sometimes you get focused on operational things and you lose sight of some of the basics. Not an excuse, but I think the leadership is very focused, as it has been every time. It's kind of been, it becomes an issue, and then we pull forces against it and programs against it, and we deal with it, and then we work on something else, and sometimes then it pops back up again. It's just like diversifying our ranks. Some of these issues, you have to keep your eye on the ball all the time, and it takes leadership, real leadership, to address the issue, hold people accountable, and so people know we're serious about sexual assault. It's not okay.
General Ann Dunwoody The first of 4 female flag officers serving in the U.S. military. Of course, Ann is now retired, but there are 2 generals in the Air Force and an admiral in the Navy who likewise have earned the 4-star rank. Briefly, it was touched on, the notion of war weariness. With our involvement overseas and with the challenges that remain for America, can we afford to be war weary? That's next as our interview with General Ann Dunwoody continues here on America's Forum. More now with retired Army General Ann Dunwoody, America's first 4-star female. In part 2 of the conversation, Rick Blackwell asks Ann Dunwoody if she thinks America is war weary.
I think it's another thing we really have to keep our eyes on. During my entire time as a general officer, we were Army at war. And I watched soldiers deploy not just once, twice, 3, 4 times. In the Special Operations community, it's 10, 11. And when you think about young kids and their families and being away and missed birthdays and missed anniversaries and missed Christmases, not just once, but over and over, that's very, very stressful on the families and the soldiers. And so the Army, the other services, have tried to do things to increase what we call dwell time, that's time at home, and make it more predictable for soldiers and their families so they know when they're going to be home. And it's not a surprise that, oh, so you're leaving tomorrow. A lot of programs have been put in place to provide that kind of stability, but it's a dangerous world out there. And I think, we will answer the call. And the Army doesn't decide to do it. Our, civilian leadership decides what missions we will and will not do. And I think it's very challenging right now because there are so many demands. Looks like, coming out of Iraq and all of a sudden we're back in Iraq. Coming out of Afghanistan, they're saying, wait, not so fast. Look at the Middle East. It doesn't matter where you look. It's a very dangerous world right now.
Recently in the news was the Marine Officer Training Course where women took that training test and none of the women passed. Is that a problem with the course? Where do you think we are right now with making sure that women would be able to fight in combat?
I'm not going to address the Marines because I'm not really sure how they set the program up and how they prepared the women and the men for that program. I'm going to talk about the Army though, and we've just had, the last count was 6 women pass the pre-Ranger training that's allowed them to go into Ranger School. And I think a lot of it is how we prepare the women to be successful, to set them up for success, and for those who are going to do the instruction to also set up for success. In my book, I talk about this. When I came in the Army, I didn't want to be a ranger. I didn't want to be a combat arms. I wanted to be a logistician who could jump out of airplanes and do that in peace and war. And fortunately for me, the doors opened. I was allowed to go to airborne school, one of the first women. It wasn't a popular decision, but I had not been able to do that. I would have never gone to parachute rigger school, commanded a battalion in the 82nd, but would have shaped my career, I'm sure, quite differently. Now we have women who want to go to Ranger School, who are capable of going to Ranger School. I think we need to give them the opportunity. That said, we cannot lower the standards to accommodate this change. They must this is a dangerous profession, and this is not a social experiment. This is about people who are qualified, capable, and have the desire to do something, open a new door, and do it to the standard required of our military.
Our experienced perspectives there, we appreciate that. The new book is called A Higher Standard, and we are fortunate to have the first interview here on Newsmax TV. Just came off the presses, and tell us how exciting was it for you to be able to share and to reflect back on your career and to also give people some insight in what your career was like and how it can really provide lessons for all of us.
Well, I hope it does just that, and I hope what it really does is excite people and get them to dream big and make a difference every day, no matter what profession they're in. And it was exciting once I had the time to reflect back on 40 years, almost 40 years in the military, of those things that really made a difference, and being able to share them with people of all walks of life, young women, young men, leaders in business. Running AMC was like being a CEO, and then leadership at the highest level. So I hope the lessons have broad applications to a very large group, to almost anyone actually that wants to be a better leader, because I think we never stop learning. I hope we never stop learning. And I don't believe there's any magic recipe on how to be a good leader. This is not how to be a general. I wouldn't know how to write that book. It's not the 10 steps on being a good leader. If there was that magic recipe, everyone would buy the recipe and that would be it. So we never stop learning, and I hope that this is a different perspective of leadership lessons that contribute, I think, to my success and hopefully will help others.
Our thanks to Rick Blackwell and to Ann Dunwoody, the author of the new book, A Higher Standard. We'll be right back.